Hi everybody, my name is Emily Cisneros and I am the founder and chairwoman of Canna Business Services. Today I wanted to provide a more practical video for you. We do a lot of industry updates and state-specific topics, but today I wanted to share with you how you can navigate websites to understand your compliance obligations. So to do that, I just want to start from the top. First, you have to look at things from a regulatory perspective. In order to remain compliant, you have to look at and understand regulations and ordinances and things like that. So, starting from the top, you've got federal, state, and local. That's the way I like to view everything. This is actually pretty applicable for every other aspect of life as well. If you're just starting a business outside of cannabis and you need to understand how you can remain compliant, then this is probably a good topic for you. So, what's really cool is that, I guess, an upside to cannabis being federally illegal, you can pretty much just summarize the federal law search as everything you're doing in the cannabis space is illegal, right? Because on the federal level, cannabis is prohibited. Now, you should understand some of the aspects of, say, IRS Code 280E, 471C. Those are code sections that are certainly applicable to you on a federal level. You should also speak to a cannabis specializing CPA and accountant to really understand your obligations from a tax perspective. So that's kind of the really short summary of understanding our federal regulations that you should look at. But today I want to focus on how to navigate your state or local requirements as you start to get into a program. So you may be just starting your business, or you may already have a business. You're a year in, you're 2 years in, and you've been fully depending on your consultants and your attorneys and your accountants and your CPAs to really understand the breadth of regulations and ordinances you have to comply with. But if you are a business owner or you are managing a business, in my belief, it is your obligation and responsibility to also know those rules and regulations, because that is what dictates every action, every standard operating procedure or SOP, every training aspect that you implement in your business. So compliance is inextricably linked with that, but you can't be compliant if you don't know the rules that you have to play in. So let's kind of start from the top. And I'm going to use the first example of New Jersey, since it's a state that's been open for a few years now. We've got a lot of clients and subscribers who are from New Jersey and may have businesses in New Jersey or are looking to start there. So I want to share this screen here. This is an example of how you can start. I would simply, if you have no idea what your state's agency that is overseeing your cannabis program, what that division is, I would just type in New Jersey, whatever your state is, New Jersey cannabis regulations or New Jersey cannabis program. Start there. Otherwise, you can actually look at something like this, and then let's just pull up New Jersey CRC. So again, you could type in, say you don't know that it's the Cannabis Regulatory Commission that's overseeing this. You could type in New Jersey cannabis program, and that is going to show your newjersey.gov, which is super cool. Now, this is pulling up the medical cannabis program. You could navigate in through here to find the adult use. You'd have to back out, go to the homepage, find out about new updates, and then go into the adult use program. Or you could just put New Jersey adult use cannabis program, and you're going to have some featured snippets, right? These are marijuana policy project. This is not the state. This is an organization. But scroll down, and usually a good way to make sure that you found the website is by looking at .gov. So here you have nj.gov, which is newjersey.gov. The top search response to New Jersey adult use cannabis program is recreational cannabis in New Jersey. Second is medical cannabis program. Both of these bring you into the CRC, the Cannabis Regulatory Commission. But since we're looking at adult use, I'm assuming you are looking for an adult use license here, then you can start to see, here's the Cannabis Regulatory Commission page. And then this is where you can just navigate. These are some of the general program rules. This is more about how much you can buy. But again, this is something that's directly applicable to dispensaries and how much they can sell. This is all based on and pulled from state regulations. So this is always a great place to start, in my opinion. This is just looking at the high level cannabis program rules. These are things that the state has specifically highlighted, so it's important for you to understand what that is. Next is where you can find resources. When you're on the state's program page, you can usually find an area that encapsulates at a high level all of the resources that you should be looking at as a business owner or manager or operator. So here they have a really nice Cannabis 101 page. This is where they really just break everything down into very simple, tangible, bite-sized pieces. This is not really going to be necessarily applicable to you, but I think it's a really great place to start, even if you're a business owner, because you're understanding the framework through which the CRC is looking at all of its policies. The most important, however, is cannabis laws and regulations. This is where everything starts. I don't know if you remember in elementary school or middle school, maybe it was more middle school, high school, you had to do research and you were taught about primary sources. Consider this the primary source. This is where everything stems from these regulations. So you're going to see things like the J. Conant Compassionate Use Medical Cannabis Act. That is where it all started back in medical. And then it actually walks you through kind of the sequence or the timeline of the adult use, the CREAM Act, which is the adult use program, and then the personal cannabis use rules, which are also important. These are updates that occurred last year. So these are the things that you need to be aware of. Another great thing to know is something just like this that was effective March 2023. You won't necessarily be signaled that there are updates to regulations unless you're consistently looking at your regulations. My company is hired a lot of times to be more of a fractional compliance resource for our clients. So we will send over updates to our clients that sign on for that support because we know that you're busy and you may not really have any time to look at regulatory updates or to be notified of regulatory updates. So what we do is we aggregate those new shifts in policies or additional or subtractions from existing policies, and we send those over to you if we believe that they might be applicable. They also link down here something called LexisNexis, and this is a free database. A portion of LexisNexis is free for the public. And this is actually where you can search actual cannabis regulations by typing in search terms here, and it will pull up all of the regulations that have the word cannabis in it. Now, that's a very broad search term, so you're going to see how many things it actually pulls up, and you'll be able to find a lot of the applicable rules to you. You have to prove you're not a robot and all that stuff. But so that is kind of how that works, and you can pull up the applicable regulations. So that's the first example. We'll pull up another example of a state that is very confusing for clients, and this is New York. New York is very confusing because it's New York. So let's go through that. All right, so here I just typed in New York OCM. OCM is the New York's version of the CRC. OCM is called the Office of Cannabis Management. Again, you may not realize or know at the point that you're looking up the regulations that the OCM is the government agency that oversees the cannabis division. But if you do, I would just type that in, the state and the government agency. Otherwise, just type in New York Adult Use Cannabis Program, and the OCM website would pop up. So the first response here, again, it's .gov. You can go into the Office of Cannabis Management here, and you've got a whole website area dedicated to adult use and medical cannabis dispensaries in the program, and all kinds of little landing pages here where you can actually get a summary, again, just like the CRC, a summary of what you need to know if you want to own, say, a distribution license. So here it shows you the type of license fees you can expect, a fee reduction if you're a social equity applicant, if you would have to then look at the program rules to see if you qualify as a social equity or social and economic equity applicant, and then eligibility requirements. So that's a great place to start. And then as you scroll down a little bit more here, read the cannabis law and regulations. Again, they try to direct you to the applicable rules, but I will tell you the best thing that you can do is wrap your head around their website, their program rules, their program overview, and then go deep dive into the actual regulations, because this is where your business lives or dies. So you've got a heavy lift as a business owner. You have to first make sure the business survives, gets open, survives, then thrives, right? You want to make sure you're scaling your business, you're optimizing your cash flow, you're creating a cash revenue producing machine, right? But You also have to make sure you're compliant, because you can't just do everything you want or anything you want. In fact, this is one of the most heavily regulated industries in the country. So make sure you're looking up the regulations here. I even would suggest looking up the medical cannabis regulations, just so you can wrap your head around the differences between the programs. California here. All right, so this is California's page, Department of Cannabis Control, California. I wanted to type this in for you so you could see something here. Actually, let's go into California Adult Use Cannabis Program, right? You type that in here, and then you've got the Department of Cannabis Control, so DCC. So you have CRC, OCM, DCC. All of these things are just the acronyms for the agencies that oversee their state's cannabis programs, and they're all different, right? You've got the health department, you've got the agricultural department, you've got different things even for different license types, different agencies that may oversee cultivation and manufacturing versus an agency who oversees the dispensaries and the adult use retailers or the non-storefront retailers, things like that. So this is the Department of Cannabis Control, again, .gov. That's a nice signal that you are looking at the right page, a state government page, and not a consultant or attorney or some sort of spam. Please understand that a program can develop things that aren't necessarily in the regulations. And what I mean by that is regulations may dictate that a state agency can build a program within certain parameters. So the program rules may be much more detailed than what you find in the regulations, because the regulations are built to give the ability for an agency to create a program. This is particularly true when a state just opens its licensing program and you're one of the first entrants and you're very new to the program, or you're in the program when it's very new to the state, I should say. And so the regulations might be called emergency rules or emergency regulations. They are quickly put together. They are pretty high level. They're not super detailed, and they're basically giving the directive for a state agency to create the authority to create the state's program within certain parameters. Actually, let's wrap it up there. Okay, so that is a high level overview of state regulations and how you can navigate them for compliance. So hopefully that was helpful. On a future episode, we will go through how to navigate local ordinances, because that's kind of the second half to understanding how you can remain compliant. So hopefully this helps. Thank you so much. Please subscribe if you found value in this, and you can always check back and get notified when we launch new videos. Thank you.